In this video, I wanted to talk to you about the grand reopening of the Luciferian Research Society. So, if you're not aware, the Luciferian Research Society, or LRS, is a site that I started back in 2009. I think it was September of 2009. And this site was intended to be like an online hub, a platform for people to discuss the left-hand path, not just Luciferianism, but I thought that the word Luciferian Research Society sounded cool. Actually, I took a lot of time to decide exactly what I was going to call it, and I put a lot of thought into specifically the wording of the title of that site. So today, actually yesterday it went live, but I made the announcements today that there's a grand reopening of the Luciferian Research Society. And this site, like I said, it's been around for like 12 years almost, and it's gone through ups and downs in terms of activity, but it's had a resurgence in activity lately. And also, I yesterday went live with a massive update to the site. So it hadn't been updated pretty much. It just little minor things that had been updated since it had launched back in 2008. And really it needed a major overhaul. And so that's what happened. And I'd been working on that for probably the last month or so, and finally went live, like I said yesterday, with the new updates. And if you want to check it out, you can go to www.luciferianresearch.org, and I put the link in the description of this video as well as in the live chat as well. So you can check that out, and you can see the updates. If you weren't aware of how the old site looked, it was cool, and it worked. But the thing is, a lot more people are using the site on mobile devices like cell phones, tablets, etc. And the old site, it really was practically unusable on mobile devices. Really, you had to switch to desktop view to really navigate it properly, and that's not the way to have a website these days, right? You have to have a mobile site that works properly. So that was probably the major update to the site, is that it now works on mobile and works really well. So you can navigate to all the different pages. It looks good. All of the text is readable. The images, all of the content is optimized to be able to be used on the mobile devices. I see Ian Lowe sent a message here in the live chat. Hey Ian, thanks for popping in. If anybody else wants to leave a message or whatever, I'll read it on the live stream here, and we can discuss whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, I wanted to mainly focus this particular episode or this live stream on that announcement. So the Luciferian Research Society has had, a lot of different people have become members of that over the years, and there have been the occasional purge of inactive accounts, usually people that had created an account and then never updated it, never put any kind of never put any content or even updated their avatar or anything like that. So occasionally I'd go through and purge some accounts that were never used. But right now we stand at over 2,000 registered members of the Luciferian Research Society. And I think that's pretty decent. A lot of those people are inactive, but part of this grand reopening is that I'm hoping to bring a lot of those people back, as well as get a bunch of new people to join the LRS. Now, as I said, there has been a lot of extra people joining lately. Even before the update went live, I was getting new members joining the LRS every day. And one of the reasons is that the Temple of Phosphorus, the order, the esoteric order that was founded by Michael Ford, they decided to move their official forums onto the LRS. So they have actually 4 groups on the LRS that are specifically to discuss the workings of the Temple of Phosphorus. So the first one is a group that's just open to anybody who's interested in discussing this, and it also is for people who are interested in working through the grade 0 work that is available to open to the public. There's a PDF file that you can download, and it has all the work of the grade 0 of TOPH, and that's available on the LRS as well. You can download it from the group, and you can get some guidance from other members and even the priesthood of the order through that group on the discussion group within the LRS. And now people who have gotten to the first degree or above, there are 2 additional groups that are available for them to join, and it'll be verified by the priesthood of the TOPH that they're eligible to join. And then once they're approved, then they can participate in those other groups as well as a 4th group specifically for the priesthood to discuss matters. And those are all official forums for TOPH. And so that has brought in a lot of new members to the LRS. And one of the benefits of this is that they also get to take advantage of all the additional content that is on the LRS, not just their own groups. And it exposes their group to all of the other members that aren't in TOPH. So it's kind of win-win in that regard. And there are other esoteric orders that have official groups on the LRS. And some of them are open to all LRS members that are interested in joining, but some of them are private and require approval. You don't necessarily have to be a member of all of them. Some of them are open to just anybody who's interested, but some of them are just for members of that particular esoteric order. Now, if you're still not clear on what the LRS is, it's not an order. It's a platform. It's a non-hierarchical meeting place, really. It's an online hub for community, for the left-hand path, for occultists, esoteric artists, and philosophers to get together and cross-pollinate and to collaborate on projects with one another. So a little bit of history of the LRS. So one of the major inspirations that drew me that inspired me to actually create the LRS in this manner. A lot of the groups around the time that the LRS was founded were formatted in the traditional esoteric order format. So that would be like a hierarchy with degrees and levels and, recognition to various, you'd have to climb through the various different degrees, and there'd be titles, different people have different titles, and it was all very structured, a lot of the various different groups that were out there. And one particular group that I was very active in was the Ordo Luciferi, or Luciferian Order. And this was something that was created by a person going by the name of Lucian Black. And they had created some initial documents and then gathered a few people that were of like mind. And, Sean, hey, or no, not Sean, San. Sorry about that. Hi there. Thanks for popping in. So that group had gathered together, and they had a structure just like I was discussing, with hierarchy and degrees and levels and titles and things like that. And there were different documents that explained the mission and the philosophy behind the Ordo Luciferi. And I had decided I was going to create something like an esoteric order, a Luciferian esoteric order, but something clicked in my head, and I thought, you know what? Oh, I see, Sandy. That's what Santa's short for. Sorry about that. Sandy. So anyways, I had originally intended to create my own esoteric order, a Luciferian esoteric order, because I had been studying Luciferianism and practicing occultism for quite a many years, and I decided, you know what, why don't I check to see if I can find something that's very close to what I'm looking to create, so that I don't have to, you know, what's the phrase, reinvent the wheel. And so I looked around, and I actually found something which was the Ordo Luciferi, and it was very close to what I would have created myself. And so I joined it, and I found it very interesting, and a lot of really cool people were part of this. And this was operated through, back in the days, it was operated on Yahoo Groups, which was an email discussion group. So basically what you would do is you would send an email, and then that email would go to all of the various members of that Yahoo group, and it could be threaded, and you could participate in the discussions that way. It was a very kind of crude way of doing things compared to what we do now, but it worked. It was very effective and very satisfying. And I found, like I said, there was a lot of cool people that were very knowledgeable about esoteric subjects and Luciferianism in general. And I met some really cool people and interacted with them. But as I went through and I got recognized to different degrees in the Ordo Luciferi, I started to realize that there was a bit of a resistance to actually turning it into a real world esoteric order along the lines of Freemasonry or the OTO or anything like that. And I had been a member of various different esoteric orders in real life up to that point, and I thought that this had great potential to be a real world esoteric order. I thought that that was what they were intending to do to begin with. There was all of the skeleton and outline for such a thing to exist, but when I tried to actually implement it, when I actually tried to get like an initiation ritual being performed by people in real life, getting together and doing these initiation rituals, getting together and doing esoteric work together, you know, I found that there was a lot of resistance. And at some point, I eventually realized that there was that the people that were on there, a lot of them who had titles, enjoyed the status quo. They enjoyed being able to kind of flaunt their titles and exert their influence over especially new members. And often the new members were, you know, it might be a bit of a stretch to say abused, but not really much of a stretch in terms of harassed or hazed, even, you could say. Maybe that's a better word. They were hazed, you know, and they were pushed around to see if they would comply, you know, or if they would push back. And there were a lot of power games being played, and the people that were exerting their influence were people that just had internet titles, and they hadn't organized a local group. They didn't have a lodge of members that they were leading. They didn't do any of that thing. They didn't do any of it. And it really kind of frustrated me. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to renounce my title. And at this point, Lucian Black had been absent for probably about a year, and nobody really knew exactly where he was. People had heard that he had had some, maybe, family difficulties or something, or possibly even health problems or something, but there was no word from him at all for a long time. Keyboard warriors, Ian said. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, keyboard warriors. And it, I just said, you know what? Enough with this charade, this charade. So I renounced my title to the group, and I said, you know what? And I just laid it all out. And I said, okay, this is just an internet discussion group. This isn't an esoteric order. It had the potential to become that, and I thought that was what the intention was, to actually turn this, to build it into something, that it was something that I had gotten in early before it had, finally manifested. But that's not what it was at all. It was just a group of people with internet titles that were, pushing people around and using this, perceived authority that they had from getting recognized to different degrees. And at the time, I even had gotten recognized to the highest level that had been, nobody had gotten any higher than I had gotten in the order. And I had been teased about, getting, like, I had been, before he left, Lucian Black had said that I was going to be getting the next degree, but he never actually did before he disappeared. And so I became the de facto leader of the Ordo Lucifera at the time. But then, like I said, I denounced my title. I exposed the keyboard warriors, as Ian called them. And other people started to follow suit. Some of the other people said, you know what? I'm going to denounce my title too. You're right. This is stupid, and I felt, that it wasn't right for a little while now, and my title's done too. And some other people decided to give themselves hilarious phony titles, and people were giving themselves, 1329th degree, exalted magus of the netherworld, and, hilarious titles like that, just to make fun of it all. And it all kind of came crashing down. Later on, a lot of former members actually asked me, they said, you know what, I really miss the structure, at least, that had for me, that it had a direction. There were degrees, and there were, a vague sense of what each of those degrees were supposed to mean, and it kind of gave them a sense of having a goal and a purpose and kind of a structure to their esoteric work. And so, at the insistence of a bunch of the former members, I did actually revive the Ordo Luciferi, but I turned it into more of an open source esoteric order. I created some self-initiation rituals and put those online that anybody could use. And you could go to, actually on the LRS itself, there's an Ordo Luciferi working group, which is essentially an online lodge that I'd created for people that actually, and I called it working group. And this is something that I had actually started before the initial collapse of the Ordo Luciferi and before the revival of it. I had created the Ordo Luciferi working group as like an online lodge of people that actually wanted to get stuff done, actually wanted to do things in real life, And it was kind of almost a bit of a protest against how things were going with that. But that's how I kind of revive things, and I still have that Ordo Luciferi working group on the LRS to this day, and you can join it and you can participate in the work. And there are people that have gotten recognized for degrees for actual work that they've done in real life. And what I've done is I've added, I don't know, I'm not talking about the LRS anymore exactly, but it leads up, and that whole thing inspired why I created the LRS in the first place. So it's relevant. It's relevant background information. But what I ended up doing was I ended up adding real world accomplishments that to each degree. So an individual can look at what they've accomplished in their esoteric career and their life in general, and they can say, okay, well, I feel like I've done that, you know, and I've done the things that are part of the second degree as well, and I've done the things that are part of the third degree as well. So maybe I'm roughly around the third degree, and it does give people a sense of progress and what they might work on next and where they've been, what they've accomplished already, and give them a sense of maybe what degree they would be in the Ordo Luciferi, even though it's open source, which I think that most left-hand path groups probably should be. You know, how left-hand path is it to ask permission to do work to do esoteric work? You know, how left-hand path is it to pay people to get a charter, to start a lodge and start working with material, esoteric material that you can access, right? So that's kind of how I reformed the Ordo Luciferi into an open source, self-initiatory order. And you can participate in that and have camaraderie with people by joining the Ordo Luciferi working group that's on the LRS. But that's not necessary. You can work the Ordo Luciferi material completely in isolation. You could be the only person in the entire world that knows that you are a member of the Ordo Luciferi, which is very cool because in some places in the world, it can be very dangerous to be known as a Luciferian or a member of an esoteric order in general, let alone a Luciferian one. So this allows you to work the material in complete privacy, 100%, to the point where only you know. Not even me. I don't even know, potentially. But like I said, if you do want that camaraderie aspect of it, there is a place for you to get that. And you can share what work you've done with other members, and you can get, you know, a type of recognition for what degree that you may be in as well. And so, but in between the initial collapse of the Ordo Luciferi and the revival of it as an open source, non-hierarchical, you know, self-initiatory, really, order. I mean, there's a hierarchy, but like I said, it's not like there's authority there, that somebody who has a higher degree than you doesn't have authority in any way, shape, or form over anybody else in the order. You decide how you work the material, and you do it. You just do it. You get the material and you do it. And a lot of the degrees don't even have a lot of material for it. You have to decide how you're going to achieve the milestones and accomplishments related to that degree in your own way, especially as you get higher up. And I think that that's important. In the earlier stages, you might need more guidance on where you're going to go. Lucius Fair 1 says it's not a dominance hierarchy exactly. It's kind of there for your own personal structure and your own ability to kind of guide your own work. So it's not like a power trip like San mentions here. San says, I had some similar experiences too. I'm very weary of groups. Power trips, sadly. Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean, San. Like I said, and I'll say it openly here. um, Lucian Black, the original founder of the Order Luciferi in its initial format, he actually said that by being the founder, that he was that top degree. Whereas when I reformed the order after he abandoned it, and I reformed it as an open source order, I didn't say I'm the number one. I'm the top degree. No, I still have to achieve those various different milestones myself as well. I'm not going to say that I'm honorary sixth degree, which is the top degree in the Ordo Luciferi, simply because the one that was the de facto leader of it, or the one that wrote, the initiation ritual, etc. No, I still have to go through the various different milestones as well and achieve those in the real world for myself to be worthy of the various titles, not just by by being the leader of the group. But that was how Lucian was doing it. And he was basically the sole arbiter of who got what degree. So that's completely different now. It's not a dominance hierarchy, as Lucius Farah said. Um, oh, yeah, and Angel mentions here the order's material is also available in Spanish. So if you are more comfortable with the Spanish language, if that's your first language, or you're simply more comfortable with Spanish than you are with English, you can actually go to the Ordo Luciferi website, ordo-luciferi.org, and there's a button you can click to translate the whole site into Spanish. And the initiation ritual is in Spanish as well, so you can do the whole. You can go through the entire material, and thanks to Angel actually. So I appreciate the help with that, the translation work that you did on that, and that's brought that material to a lot of other people that would otherwise not be able to access it. Junebug says, I'm really impressed with the updated LRS site. Thank you very much. It's nice how mobile friendly it is, since I'm often too lazy to boot up my ancient laptop. Yeah, like I said, more and more people are accessing the internet through their mobile device rather than a laptop, myself included. I usually use my cell phone for web browsing and using various different websites, etc., compared to my laptop. I do still use my laptop, you know, fairly often, but sometimes I'll go a few days without booting up my laptop. It's a decent laptop, even. It's not even a clunky old one. But it's so much more convenient just to take the device that you have in your hand with you at any given time and access the site through that. And yeah, so obviously that was a major update that needed to happen if the LRS was to continue being an operable site. I was using it using the desktop view, and that worked okay, but that's not the way to do things in the modern world. um, let's see. Lucius Fair says there are task-driven hierarchies and there are power-driven hierarchies. The latter are almost certain to become corrupt. Very, very true. Very true. And yeah, so one of the things I feel like I've re-examined my experiences in the esoteric order community. I've been a member of several different esoteric orders over the years. Some of them right-hand path, some of them left-hand path. Some of them were top-notch, and others not so much. Some of them had some major issues with the power structure built into the system, and others were just simply unorganized and didn't inspire a lot of confidence. And sometimes there were issues with people abusing their power. And I have, if you wanted to go back on some of the videos on my channel here, you can see some of the experiences that I've described with, for instance, one particular branch of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which I described as a cult, which it truly was. It truly was a cult, the way that they were working that material. And, in case you're curious, it was what was it, Robert Zink led group that had originally referred to themselves as what was it, the Esoteric Order of the Morning Star, I think they called it. Or maybe it was Hermetic Order of the Morning Star, one of the two. They had initially, and then later on they changed it to the Golden Dawn. But it was a Golden Dawn system, and they made that clear from the outset. But what had interested me was that they referred to themselves as the Order of the Morning Star, which, of course, is a reference to Lucifer, to anybody who's knowledgeable about that. And I had I had sent them a letter, and I said, is that a reference to Lucifer? Is that an explicit reference to Lucifer, or are you just translating the old Golden Dawn group that Israel Regardie was a part of, that was called Stella Matutina, which means in English morning star? They didn't answer the question, but they sent me an application, and I took that as a tacit kind of implicit admission that it was Luciferian in nature. It turns out it wasn't. They just basically, I think, sent an application to anybody who asked any question about the order, I bet. But when I actually joined it, I had some good experiences with it. It wasn't all bad, but if you want to know the cult-like aspect of it, that got more and more cult-like as time went on. Check out my video on that. I referred to it, I think, as a Golden Dawn cult. My experience with the Golden Dawn cult, I think, is the title of that one. I also have a video on why I left the Ordo Templi Orientis, or OTO. And that one tells about some of the power issues that were going on with that, and how I felt like there was an out-of-touch leadership. And you know what? One of the things that really bothered me about the OTO and my experience with it was that there was a leader, actually it was the outer head of the order at the time, who was exerting a lot of influence on our local group in a different country. And I'd never met this man, the outer head of the order, or OHO. The inner head of the order, by the way, is a spiritual, non-physical being, supposedly. And I'd never met this man, yet he was having an influence and power over how I was able to perform my work in a different country. And he wasn't doing it good. He wasn't doing a good job of it either. He wasn't managing it in a way that made sense. And if you wanted to watch that video, you can, I go into a lot more detail. But yeah, that was another hierarchy with permissions that didn't make very much sense, really. And here I am paying money, some of it going to this guy, right, that I've never met before. And he didn't write the material. You know, he didn't write the material at all, and he was making poor decisions about how my local group was being managed, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth. And so that was another formative influence on creating the LRS in general. So I wanted the LRS to be a place where people from all different branches of the occult, and especially what people usually refer to as the left-hand path or the Western left-hand path. Some people say the complete path, but the path that embraces both works of light and a courageous exploration of the darkness or the shadow side of things. So people who are involved in esoteric traditions and practices that don't shun the darkness and embrace the full range of esoteric practices, and so which conveniently we can say left-hand path. So for people who are left-hand path occultists, especially, to get together without being part of a specific group, that people from various different groups, and maybe they are a part of a specific group, but this is an area, kind of a neutral space where people can get together and discuss their practices and learn about other people's practices in a neutral space where one group in particular wasn't dominating another group or saying, hey, listen, this is Setian, let's say, or this is a theistic satanic group, so leave that atheistic shit out of here, you know. You know, I wanted a neutral space where people who were atheistic Satanists could talk with theistic Luciferians or Gnostic Luciferians or Setians or any of the various different branches and traditions, or independent eclectic practitioners or philosophers or mystics who could meet in a space on the level, to borrow a Masonic term. So without people throwing titles around. And you know what? Another thing that I did see is that there were other forums that existed, occult forums, where people who were they almost used the same esoteric order structure, even though they didn't call it an esoteric order, because they had like the founder had their title next to their name in the group as like founder or whatever. And then moderators, there was like a couple different levels of moderator. There was like mod and admin or something like that, and they would put their title beside their name, their username, in the forum, and they would have that. It caused some of the same problems of people lording their authority over other members, and I didn't want that. So nobody gets to use a title in the LRS. I mean, within your own individual group, you have your own titles potentially, you know, but you're meeting with other people that have their own titles from their own groups or independent people. And all the people are meeting on a level playing field in that sense, that the LRS is that meeting space. Let's see what some comments we have here. Ian says, I always respect what I earn and learn, and I resist power or authoritarian figures. Yeah, I agree. And Lucius Ferris says, same here, I only respect earned merit and genuine talent. And that was kind of how I wanted to set up the LRS, in a way where the only way to distinguish yourself as a leader within the LRS was through your own merit, not through some title given to you by some authority figure within the group, and the prestige that comes with having some kind of title, you know, by actually doing things and your accomplishments and the knowledge that you have shared with people and the respect that you've gained from individuals through your direct action, not through some title or whatever. So that was the main inspiration. And so I thought, well, let's do it based off of like an artist guild where people can share their work with each other. They can find people to collaborate on projects together, and they can cross pollinate their ideas between one another of different traditions and independence and things like that. So let's see here. San says, thank you for that OTO video. That made me not want to join it. Well, I'm glad. Because you know what? Most people who have joined the OTO have left the OTO. You know, and I do respect that there are some people who have decided to take a stand and they decided, you know what? I like this system and it really resonates with them, and they've decided, you know what, I'm gonna push for change. I'm gonna push for this to be implemented in the way that it should be implemented, and not power games and not any of this other crap that wasn't intended in the original documents. And they push for that and they criticize the way things are being done, but they stay. And I really respect that for those who feel like they really resonate with that system in particular. Now, I didn't feel like that system resonated with me to the point where I needed to take a stand and stay as part of it and work it and try and push for change within. You know, I did find it interesting and I did learn a lot, and I met some really cool people while I was a part of the OTO, and some have been lasting friendships ever since. But it wasn't, you know, it wasn't the hill that I was decided to die on. You know, it wasn't a thing that I wanted to plant my flag down and say, okay, you know what, this is the thing. This is my thing. This is the thing that I'm gonna do. You know, it didn't resonate with me to that level. You know, there were other things that I was more interested in actually, and I went on to explore. Yeah, so for those people who really does resonate with and who decided to take a stand, I really can respect that. But most people have joined and decided, you know what, it's not the place for me. And if my video helps you decide whether or not that is something that you want to have to deal with, whether it's something that you are willing to put up with because you resonate so strongly with, or not, if that helps you make that decision, I'm glad that I could contribute to that discussion. The Order Luciferi is very friendly, deep, and realistic, says Angel. There are already some topics about the grades and structure on the OL group at Luciferian Research Society. Let's make it grow. Thank you, Angel, for that endorsement. And yeah, it's really fun. The Order Luciferi is just one avenue of interest that you could do. And one of the cool things about the Order Luciferi, the way that it's organized now in the working group, that's on the LRS, and the website that I mentioned before, ordo-luciferi.org, is that you can work that material along with anything else that you're doing. It doesn't conflict. The initiation ritual, the initial Incipio first degree ritual, self-initiation ritual, is built off of the alchemical formula. So when you are performing that self-initiation ritual into the Order Luciferi first degree, you are performing the alchemical process on yourself. And it's compatible, like I said, it's compatible with any other work that you do. And there are no commitments or anything like that to become a part of the Order Luciferi. And so that's one of the cool things about it, is that you can work that material along with anything else that you're interested in. Like I said, if you're part of the order of Phosphorus, um, that you can still do Ordo Luciferi material as well if you want, alongside. And you could even consider a lot of the work that you do, the esoteric work that you do with TOPH, as helping you accomplish the milestones of the Ordo Luciferi. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and a lot of ways you can utilize that material. So that's one of the neat things about it. Oliver says, well, a horizontal structure is quite effective when one wants to avoid abuse of power in a hierarchy. Yeah. Now, one thing, sometimes you do have to do moderating of the group, but that, like I said, if there is any kind of moderation activity on the group, it's not somebody with a title that's lording that title over anybody. It's just an administrative function that just simply has to be done for a group to be workable. There's going to be occasionally people that come in and troll it. There's going to be people that occasionally come in and just post massive amounts of content that are completely irrelevant, and you just got to get rid of that kind of thing. And that's, an unfortunate necessity in these types of groups. But like I said, it's not a title. Anybody who does help with that work, they don't get a title that they could put next to their name, their username in the group, and say, I'm moderator, blah, blah, blah. It's just another member that's helping out with certain administrative functions of the group. Like myself, I don't lord, the fact that I created it as, a title or anything like that. That I'm saying I have authority over everybody. Everybody must listen to what I say. You can't question anything. I like to have discussion with people. I like when people challenge my ideas and things that I'm saying, and it helps me to reflect on my own way of doing things and maybe learn something about how I can improve. And it's all about meeting on the level, like I said. Lucius Ferris says, I think the occult must consider balance, harmony, and cycles. Both the light and the dark makes the whole. Right, so you're referring back to what I was talking about with left-hand path, which I like to refer to it more as complete path. Although technically you could do a right-hand path kind of goal while having a complete path if you do something along the lines of like a Christian mystic who embraces the whole dark night of the soul, St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avila, that kind of thing. You could do a complete path and have a right-hand path end goal. Yeah, I mean, left-hand path is a convenient term for things like Luciferianism, Satanism, Setian philosophy, dark paganism. The emphasis is on dark because that's the part that usually gets shunned. You have people who say they're light workers, or they're white witches, or various different, they follow the Great White Brotherhood, which sounds a little iffy, but that was the term that they used back when that kind of thing was going on with like theosophy and things like that. Which itself has some questionable doctrines, you might say. But let's get off of that topic for the moment. But yeah, you had a lot of what people refer to as right-hand path traditions that actively and explicitly shun the darkness, and they won't work with the shadow, and they won't explore the darker, more disturbing truths that are out there about nature, human nature, as well as greater nature, and that balance, as Lucius was saying there. Angel says, I also have the zombie tarot behind you. Yeah, that one right there. Yeah, actually, one of the things that I did with that was I don't actually have a full deck in there. I'm playing with I'm not playing with a full deck. But yeah, the zombie tarot there, I actually used those. A lot of those cards are gone, and they're in the homes of several other people in the world that participated in an event. What event was that? I believe that was Ottawa, Ontario, the International Left-Hand Path Conference. I believe that one was the first one that was officially branded as Flambeau Noir, which means black torch in French. And that was a Canadian city, the capital of Canada, actually the nation's capital, Ottawa. And I produced an international conference there, Flambeau Noir, that I utilized the zombie tarot as the ticket. So I made a special mark on each of the cards and I sent them out. And it was almost like a reading in a sense, where a tarot reading, where it was I would get into the proper state, the proper altered state, and I would shuffle the cards with intention, and I'd pull the cards specifically for that attendee of that event, and then I marked it with a special mark so that it wouldn't be counterfeited or whatever, and that was mailed out to that individual, and they brought that card with them as their entry, the token to gain entry into the event. So a lot of people actually have cards from that deck in their home, from that event, from that reading in a sense, and that card kind of represented them in a sense. So that was what that was for. So I do still have some of the cards, but that was a really cool thing, and I've done that with another deck here, another deck that was really beautiful, and I need to get another one for myself actually, because I don't have this deck anymore. I think 100% of these cards are out there in the world in other people's homes of the Black Flame Tarot, and this was Jennifer McAtee, and beautiful artist. She does beautiful artwork. Here, you could see some of the artwork here from one of the cards, and here's another one of them. An absolutely beautiful deck, and I need to get another copy of this deck for myself, for actually using it as a tarot deck and not as a ticket. But that was used for a different event, another Flambeau Noir event. That one was held in Portland, Oregon, United States of America. So that was what that one was for, and like I said, beautiful deck. I need to get another one for my own use. But every one of those cards, aside from a couple of the blanks, all of them are out there in the world in other people's homes, and they've been specially marked as well. And those were used in an actual reading as well at the event itself. They were collected up and they were used in a reading and then redistributed back to the people who had brought them. And they were used as a ticket to get entry into the event, but they were also used in an esoteric working that was a divinatory style working. It was actually more than that. It was part of the opening ceremony, but as one aspect of that opening ceremony, we did a divinatory element to it. So that was really fun, and a lot of people really appreciated that element of it. There were also some demon cards that went out, and I think there was another deck as well that might have been used, an oracle deck of some sort. Let me see here. Ian says, I can be very dark or brilliantly light, as is witnessed every morning before I have coffee. Speaking of coffee, actually this is not coffee but tea, but in my cat mug. I did have a Doctor Strange mug that I was using, but it got broken, and so now I'm using this one. It's not the best mug, it's a little top heavy, but it's the biggest mug that I have right now, and I like my tea. DJ says, does this group promote egalitarianism and equality and other modern myths? No, no, it doesn't. It's just that it's not, people aren't going in there and getting some sort of perceived merit or prestige, you could say. They're not benefiting from the prestige of a title bestowed upon them by some supposed authority figure. They have to achieve their own valor, you could say, through their own efforts, not through some borrowed prestige that has been granted upon them by some authority figure, like I said. It's not, it doesn't promote egalitarianism or anything of the sort. You know, people will stand out and as leaders within the group, but it's not enshrined in the structure of the LRS itself. So you have to put in the effort to stand out for yourself if you want to be recognized as a leader within the Luciferian Research Society. So you know, like I said, it's not some kind of artificial prestige you're getting. You're gonna put in the effort, and if you get recognized for that effort, then what have you, right? I'm not trying to promote some sort of egalitarianism of any sort. Nick says, sounds interesting. Does it jive with Golden Dawn system? Well, Golden Dawn is more of a right-hand path system, but absolutely, it is something that I feel that is very valuable to study and understand and explore. I personally, like I said, I went through and I practiced Golden Dawn rituals and Golden Dawn style rituals for a long time, and I ended up joining a group that worked the Golden Dawn system, and I was part of that group, and I went through several degrees and initiations within that order. But the LRS itself is not an order, but if you want to join the LRS and discuss Golden Dawn material, then that's totally something that's relevant. Semael says, always just saw it as individualism / left-hand path versus collectivism / right-hand path. Yeah, that's a good shorthand, you know. Generally, those on the left-hand path are working towards personal individuation, to borrow a term from Jungian psychology, or personal enlightenment or illumination, Luciferian illumination, you could say, and autotheism, becoming one's own god, or even becoming recognized as a god, or achieving a certain godhood in the world at large, which would be apotheosis, would be the proper term for that, and becoming a force of nature in your own right, in a sense, becoming an influence or a creative force in the universe in your own right. Whereas right-hand path is more about, generally, like I said, it's a very, you could generalize and say right-hand path traditions generally give up their free will, in a sense, to something greater, and usually that's some sort of collective kind of collectivism sort of thing. The universe, you know, God, what have you, you know, dissolving their personality, their own individuality into some sort of like ego death and ecstatic dissolution in something greater than themselves, is usually what you would see in a right-hand path. So yeah, individualism versus collectivism, left-hand path versus right-hand path. It's more about the end goal, and that's a pretty good shorthand. Oliver says, I mean, white witchery, at least in its most popular form, is basically Christianity with fairies and a dash of hippie. Yeah. You know, the whole boo, demons bad, curses bad gig. Yeah. Um, yeah, you know, I mean, to each their own, I suppose. Different strokes for different folks. But yeah, I find that white witchery is often more nature friendly version of Christianity in a lot of ways, you could say. It has very much the same kind of moral structure as Christianity, where you've got the idea that good deeds are rewarded and bad deeds are punished. Some sort of, you know, threefold law or whatever. Some sort of um, there are certain things that are objectively good and some things that are objectively bad. You're not supposed to curse people. You're not often you're not even supposed to do magic that has any sort of benefit to yourself at all. And that's considered black magic if you do something to benefit yourself. You know, a lot of those traditions, they say that. And yeah, so that it can get very moralistic, and it's often Christianity light in a sense, or Christianity with a bit of hippie and fairies. Yeah, like you said, you know, if that works for some people, sometimes that's what some people have to go through to help them get out of the deep indoctrination of Christianity in steps. You know, some people don't just make a clean break and then start doing the black mass and break all ties or do the rite of the unpardonable sin, you know, and just completely break their ties with the right hand path entirely. Some people do make that dramatic transformation instantly, almost, you could say. But other people take baby steps, and that could be one of those steps. So, you know, I don't want to bash it or anything like that. I'm just saying, yeah, like a lot of this, you know, white witchery or whatever does end up being very similar to Christianity in a lot of ways. But yeah, sometimes people have to go through that as a step. Some people stay there, and that's fine too. Lucius Fair says, "Nice talk. Let's do this more often." What are we done here? Or are we you wanna quit or something? You know, I'm ready. I'm willing to keep talking a little while. I haven't even gotten into actually all the different functions of the LRS yet, but Luminous 33 says, "Love the tarot ticket idea. That's pure genius. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really enjoyed doing that, and I thought, and you know what? That was one of the things that people said really stood out to them, is that when they got their ticket and it was a tarot card, an actual tarot card, and it had its own meaning to them, you know, and they're like, whoa, that specific tarot card came to me at this time, and it meant so much to them, and it was like the perfect card for them to receive at that moment too. A lot of the people told me later on, you know, the number of people that came up to me during those events where I used that idea, um, said that that was one of the most impactful things about it, up to the point where they had, you know, gotten to the event itself, but they were really impressed with it, and a lot of people came up to tell me that they really appreciated that. And so yeah, I'm really happy that that was something that I got inspired to do. The idea came to me because I thought, you know, this is going to be a relatively exclusive event, and you know, I decided, you know what, let's cap the number of people we're gonna sell tickets to at 78, the number of cards in a tarot deck, and then we can use the tarot deck as tickets, and each person is that card in a sense, in one sense of the way of looking at it. And then when we all get together, we're a full, complete tarot deck together. And I thought that was a really neat thing, and a lot of people really appreciated it. So thank you for that, Luminous33. Lucius Fair says, you got me into tarot years and years ago in your video on different forms of divination. Oh, cool. I'm glad I could inspire you, Lucius. If you haven't seen it, or listened to it, I should say, the Luciferian Research Society podcast, one of the episodes of that was all about tarot, and I'm really proud of that episode. Really, it gives you everything you need to know to practice tarot, and you could work with that material for several years before ever needing to use any other resource. And I even give some examples of readings that I gave for some people that were members of the LRS, gave questions that they were willing to have the answers to on that podcast, and I did a few actual readings for that podcast as well, so people get an example of at least my style of doing tarot readings, where they could see like an actual reading play out. And I give information about the different elements, planets, and signs of the zodiac behind the major arcana cards that a lot of people don't even realize. And that can allow you to build your own internal deck, which is where tarot becomes really powerful once you've internalized it and you've got your own internal deck. And then any deck that you use physically ends up just being a proxy, a physical proxy for your own internal deck. And my own internal deck actually is even more different from any of the standard decks now that I've been practicing it for over 25 years now. Tarot specifically, that I like been studying and practicing in earnest, not just kind of casual playing around with it, but I've been really studying it for 25 years, specifically focused on learning the intricacies of tarot. And I've kind of got my own tarot deck now, that not kind of, I've fully got my own internal deck that any physical deck is just a proxy for now at this point when I'm doing it. And I actually have added a few cards and I'm going to manifest this and allow people to purchase it and learn my own deck that I've developed over the course of my studies and practices of that. But yeah, check out that podcast, the LRS podcast. That's another project that the LRS launched, is a podcast, and we did about I think it might have been about 7 episodes or so, but they were really highly produced, most of them. And there were about 3 or 4 in particular that I put a lot of effort into, that I'm really, really proud of. And that tarot one was one that I was really extra proud of. And it has so much information, just chock full of information on tarot in that episode. So if you're into that, check that one out. I also have one on lucid dreaming that I'm really proud of as well, that has a ton of information. What's another one? Sex magic. There was one that I did an LRS podcast on that goes into some pretty good detail, that has a lot of information that if you're into that, then that might be something you might want to check out, is that LRS podcast. I'm going to put up a blog or something that has the links to all the different episodes on the LRS, but I haven't posted that yet. On the old interface, I had like an RSS feed that had a lot of the episodes listed on there in that way, and that's how people could kind of check them out. But I don't have that set up on the new interface. What I'll do is I'll make a blog post and I'll put the links in there, and I'll add that to the learning paths, to one of the learning paths there. So that's one of the new things that has been added to the LRS in the new update is there's an entire page called Learning Paths, and this is still in development actually, but what that will be once it's fully developed out is that I have in development right now um, different learning paths, and these will be essentially articles that give recommended resources for people who feel drawn to, say, a particular path or a particular tradition. And now one of them is going to be for people who are new members of the LRS, so a way to kind of check out certain things that I think are really important for you to check out when you join the LRS, like check out the forums, maybe check out a particular forum post that talks about certain things that I think are important for you to understand when you're in the LRS. But it's just a guideline, it's just kind of a recommended resources, and it could have books that you might want to pick up and read and study. Um, One of the paths is going to be a Luciferian, or there might even be subpaths within that, like Gnostic Luciferian in particular, say. Or you could have one that's maybe sabbatic witchcraft, and you could have another one that might be Levian satanic path. And if you're really feeling drawn or resonating with a particular path, you can go in there and you can check out a list of recommended resources. Like I said, books that you might want to read that are probably helpful to you in that path, websites that you might want to check out outside of the LRS, particular groups on the LRS that you might want to join and participate in, certain forum discussions or blog posts that might be relevant to you. Now, these learning paths are going to be available to anybody who navigates to the website, whether they're a member or not. These are public articles. People can check out these resources, recommended resources for various different learning paths. And some of those links will go to internal documents that are for members only. And so you may have to become a member to access certain recommended resources, but a lot of the things will be things that you could access even if you're not a member of the LRS. But, you know, it might encourage you to join the LRS if there's something in particular in that list that you're like, you know what, I really want to check out that blog post. It sounds really interesting. Sounds like it's got some information that I want to check out. And so that might encourage more people to join because there might be resources that are members only resources that are in that list. So blog posts are public. So if you are a member of the LRS, you can host a blog, your own blog on the LRS, and those posts can be viewed, those blog posts can be viewed by anybody. But only members can comment on it and leave comments for you and participate in discussion on that blog post. But anybody can read that blog post. That's a public-facing content that only members can produce and only members can comment on, but anybody can go in and read those blog posts. So if you are a blogger, an occult blogger or esoteric blogger, or you feel like you have some ideas to share on occasion, or even just a one-time thing, you can post a blog on the LRS, and that's something that's content that people who aren't members could check out as well. Now, forums are for members only. So there's a LRS forum, and that's site-wide. That's for anybody who's a member of the LRS can participate in the forum. And there are discussion threads that you can start a new discussion. You can participate in existing discussions. There's a lot of content that already exists there, like years worth of content. Like I said, the LRS has existed for 12 years now, almost. I think in September it'll be 12 years. And you can go back and any of the old forum discussions, you can add your comment to that and revive a new or you can revive an old discussion and add to it some of your own insights or questions, and other people might see that. It'll pop up to the top of the activity field, and people will be like, oh, somebody's talking about this old discussion, and then more people could start talking about it, and it could revive an old thread. Or, like I said, you could create a brand new thread, and those are for members only. Nobody who's not a member can even see the forums. Um, what else? We have members galleries of photos and videos. So you can add photos and videos to the website, to the LRS, and anybody can see that. But if you wanted to comment on it or discuss it, you have to be a member to comment on it. Um, Groups. Now, this is probably the most utilized aspect of the LRS is groups. And the groups are formed around various different subjects. Like I said, the TOPH has 4 groups within the LRS. One of them is for entry level people who want to work the 0 degree material, or they just want to discuss the types of things that the TOPH are interested in working with, or they might want to get guidance for as they go through that 0 degree work. And there's another 3 groups that are for people who have progressed to at least the 1st degree or beyond that can join them. And those are official. Those are the main official forums for TOPH now. They've moved their official forums to the LRS specifically, so that they can take advantage of all the other resources that the LRS provides, plus have their own private space on the LRS as well to discuss some private members only stuff, as well as have that 0 degree more open. But that again is for members of the LRS can join that, and people who aren't members of the LRS can't see any of those, anything in any of the groups on the LRS. If you're not a member of the LRS, you can't see what's in that group. You can see that a group exists, potentially, but you can't see what's inside that group unless you're a member. And a lot of the groups are open to anybody who's interested, who is an LRS member, but some of them are more private and you have to apply to join. And you can't, even if you are an LRS member, you can't see what's in that group if it's a private group unless you've applied and been accepted to join that group. And so that's great for people who have esoteric orders that they're participating in. They can have their own little private space within the LRS platform to discuss some of those more private things that are for members only. But you have more generic subject matter, like special interest groups, like alchemy or Goetia. We have one for music and musicians, that people can discuss music in that group in particular, and you can post your music that you've created. You can post music that you appreciate, and you can discuss it. You can talk about methods of creating music, like instruments or production tools. You can talk about gigs or the whole performing, any of that stuff, or finding a label, things like that. I'm getting really in depth in that particular group, but this is the idea behind these types of special interest groups. You've got another one for people who are writers, and you've got one specifically for people to promote their written material. You've got a poetry group. You've got one on visual art, like painting and things like that. There's alchemy group, where people can discuss anything related to alchemy. And there's a comment, usually there's a comment wall, there's an area for pages with resources that are within that group. There's a discussion forum within that individual group rather than the site-wide LRS forum. There's also within each group there's another forum for that group, and there's threaded discussions. You can start a new discussion within that group about that particular topic. What are some of the other groups? There's one, Basic Luciferian Course. It's a very popular group within the LRS that people can join, and a lot of it is discussion on what somebody who's new to Luciferianism should be learning about, in various different people's opinions, and people discuss that. And there are actual documents that people have produced that are lessons that they've generated, user generated content, and there's other lessons that have been collaborated on by various members of that group. It's a very popular group. There's a lucid dreaming group. That's one of my favorite, because that's probably my favorite esoteric practice of all. Not probably, it is my favorite esoteric practice of all: lucid dreaming and astral projection. I think of them both as intimately related. Let me see here. See some comments here. So Oliver said, I second that. You, dear Jeremy, are the reason I got involved with tarot and why my friends get their asses kicked whenever I give them readings. Well, thank you so much for your kind words, Oliver. I'm glad that I could inspire some people with some of this stuff. It's really nice to hear. Ian says, well, I'll see you in TOPH. Happy for the reopening of the LRS. Take care. See you later, Ian. I'm glad you were able to participate in this live stream today. Sophia, caught you live. It's 5 a.m. here in England. Good morning. Good morning, Sophia. I'm glad that you're able to pop on here. I haven't seen you on one of these in a while, and I haven't actually done a live stream in a while, but I'm really glad that you were able to pop on here. I hope to see you on the LRS and check that out. And to see what kind of groups that you're interested in. There is actually a group, the Ladies of the LRS, I think it's called, and that one is specifically for women that to join that and talk about things of interest to them and of specific topics that they find relevant. Oliver says, yes, I agree that for some people the right-hand path might be a more comfortable conversion. I am just salty because of all the abuse I got when I was involved in a right-hand path group. Touche. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people have experienced some very bad things from some people who claim to be very righteous, and when you got that very rigid moralistic system, it can be used like a hammer, and some people use it like a weapon, and they use it to abuse people and to harass them, to shame them, make them feel guilt or shame about how they live their life and how they decide to live their life, or who they are, their identity, their the way they decide to live their life, etc. But that happens in the left-hand path too, although I do feel like a lot of these dogmatic religions in particular are the ones that are most egregious, and that usually happens more on the right-hand path, but it does happen on the left-hand path too. You got to watch out for it. Nick Christensen says, I was raised on a very fundamentalist version of Christianity and broke free from that heavy dogma with esoteric Christianity, Christian mysticism, and eventually Gnosticism. Yeah, absolutely. That's essentially how I did it too. I was raised Christian as well, and I went to Catholic school, and I believed in a lot of that stuff when I was a kid, at least. And part of my breaking out of that indoctrination was to practice things like Rosicrucianism, Christian mysticism, and Hermeticism, Kabbalah and some of the things like that kind of led me into being able to explore some of these other things and allowed me to get a little more comfortable, get my feet, dip my toe into the esoteric, and eventually that led me to feel more comfortable exploring some of the more darker aspects of human nature, nature itself, the nature of the universe, and reality, and such, and to work with my own shadow and to accept more. To accept truths that aren't necessarily comfortable, a lot of people would prefer a comforting lie to a disturbing truth, but I eventually got to the point where I was able to withstand some of these more disturbing truths, and integrate the understanding of reality in a much more profound way, and allow myself to explore that stuff. And it did take steps for me, and I did go through Gnosticism was one of the things that really kind of broke me through. Actually, Freemasonry as well, esoteric Freemasonry and Gnosticism were what helped me really break through that and realize that I was Luciferian, and that Lucifer was something that I had actually been seeking for a very long time, although I wasn't able to admit it to myself for a long time. But once I did, it was very liberating, and to that, since that day, that word Lucifer has been very resonant with me. It was the key to unlock that whole other world of exploration and acceptance of truth, and yeah, and the whole black flame thing, if you want to call it that, or at the time it was darkness visible was the word that was the term that I was using, which now I know a lot of people in the left-hand path use the term black flame. And that kind of ties into why I utilize that term. I came up with the term flambeau noir, which is the black torch, which is a vessel of the black flame, or of the darkness visible. And the darkness visible is not just a term within Freemasonry, but also you find that term used in Milton's Paradise Lost. So those two things kind of clicked together with me when I heard the term darkness visible in the third degree of esoteric Freemasonry. And I also had already read Paradise Lost by John Milton, and he describes the flames in hell as not light, but more a darkness visible, which I thought was very intriguing at the time. And then when I heard that term darkness visible again, when I went through the third degree of Freemasonry, it really was like, whoa, that whole, what people now most commonly refer to as the black flame, it, really, I understood it. And it came hand in hand with that term Lucifer as well. So that term Lucifer and understanding what it really meant unlocked that black flame for me, that darkness visible. So that was through Freemasonry and Gnosticism that really kind of helped me break through that. Let's see. Sleepy Me says hello from Toronto. Noticed a lot of people from Toronto, or the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, popping into this chat. That's pretty cool. I've spent more time living in Toronto than anywhere else, and I'm not. I've moved out of the city, but not that far. I'm still less than an hour away from Toronto, so yeah, that's pretty cool. Represent the TO, the T dot. Oliver says, ah, yes, Paradise Lost, aka the most popular Bible fan fiction, along with Dante's Divine Comedy. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Divine Comedy is pretty cool. Inferno, which is the most popular part of that, of course, is really neat. And that, harkens back to the whole Sumerian descent of Ishtar, where going through the various different levels down eventually to the pit of hell, the pit of the underworld, and then coming back up. It's really archetypal, that whole journey into the underworld and back, like Orpheus, right? And yeah, I have a initiation ritual that I wrote based off of that whole descent into the underworld and return, called the Descent of Ishtar. I think, yeah. And that one you can actually read. I have it available for free. If you're interested, you can check it out. The ebook, I think it's 26-page ebook, where it's the grade book, the first grade book of the Ziggurat of Enki, which is a Sumerian slash Babylonian esoteric order that I founded. And you can join the group on the LRS as well. The Ziggurat of Enki has a group within the LRS that you can join. But if you go to my website, jeremycrow.com, and you sign up to the newsletter, you just have to give your email address and your name. And then once you confirmed your email address, then you'll get a download link, and you can download that ebook DRM free, so you can share it with people if you want. But I ask that you don't, because that's one of the ways that I'm kind of enticing people to join my email list, is to get that ebook. But yeah, the PDF. Oh, somebody says here, Ziggurat of Enki, yes, that one PDF collecting dust in my laptop's library. As about a million other esoteric PDFs, probably, right? So many people collect esoteric or occult PDFs and then never ended up reading them. But yeah, I encourage you to read it if you're interested in the whole Sumerian Babylonian thing, as well as the whole esoteric order lodge style initiation ritual. And I do it in a different way. I took the whole idea of the left hand path and I tried to break it down to first principles. And I was like, okay, how would I recreate Freemasonry if I were to do it from left hand path first principles? And that's what, and the Ziggurat of Enki is what came out of that thought experiment. And that Descent of Ishtar grade book that you can download for free by going to jeremycrow.com and signing up to the newsletter, that is the official grade book, the first one that you're going to get, which is for level -1 to -7. It's kind of 7 degrees in one ritual. And once you have that material, you can start working it. You don't need to petition for a charter, like in a traditional group. You don't have to pay money to get a charter, to start a lodge. If you have the material, just work it. Don't ask permission. This is the left-hand path, right? Don't ask permission. You've got the material, just start working it. You only need 5 people, including yourself, to perform that ritual, to get a lodge started of the Ziggurat of Enki. And you don't need to pay dues to me to maintain your membership in the Ziggurat of Enki. Once you've got the material, that's all you need to start working and start a lodge and have a real working group that's practicing a very powerful ritual, if I do say so myself. It's based off of, like I said, the Descent of Ishtar myth from ancient Sumer, ancient Babylon, and it's been turned into, it's been it's been utilized to become a Masonic style initiation rite that is built on left-hand path first principles. Now, the other interesting thing about this, if you read that ritual and perform it, even you'll see that the person who starts off as the candidate for initiation at the very beginning, who's going to be initiated in that ritual, at the very end of it ends up becoming essentially what in Freemasonry you would refer to as the master of the lodge. And then that person who was the candidate for initiation goes through the process of initiation and eventually ends up being the master of the lodge, and then they're the ones that they are the person that closes out the lodge in the end, because they're sitting in the throne, which I think is pretty cool. So if that's intriguing you, I encourage you to check out that ritual, and I encourage you to get together with 4 other people, if you can do it safely, you know, with the whole COVID-19 stuff going on. But yeah, perform that ritual, or if not, you know, perform it in your astral temple, and or even just read it and you know, visualize it as you're going through, and that has some efficacy as well. So I encourage you, if you're interested in that, I encourage you to check that out and actually read it. Oliver says, to be honest, I'm currently in the process of creating an online PDF library for my coven mates in a Discord server, and I'm reading like mad these days, so I'll probably read the Ziggurat soon. That's very cool. Angel says, the initiation ritual from the Ziggurat of Enki is also translated into Spanish. Yeah, I really appreciate your work on that, Angel. So, what else can I say about the LRS? If you want another feature that isn't there yet, ask me, and I'll see about getting it. If there's enough interest and if it seems relevant, we can add it. We can mold and shape the Luciferian Research Society as we see fit. It's not finished, you know. It's a work in progress. It's an ever evolving project, just like yourself, you know, just like each of us is. We create ourselves anew each day, and we can do that with the LRS together, you know, collectively. You know, don't get scared of that word. You know, we're co-creating, you know, a space where we can interact and collaborate with one another and learn from one another as well. Let me see here. Oliver says, I could possibly translate the Ziggurat of Enki ritual in Greek since I'm bilingual. That would be very appreciated, and I'd love to get a lot of this material available to people of other languages that aren't necessarily fluent in English enough to be comfortable with using that material in English. And if you have the ability to translate that into Greek, that would be amazing. I would be very appreciative of that. Luminous33 says, I relate to your progression from Christianity through various paths to Luciferianism. There's much to gain from all the paths along the way. Absolutely. I learned so much with each of these various different experiences that I had along the way on the journey. Though ultimately rejected, they only add to our consciousness. Absolutely. I absolutely agree. Each one of them had some sort of impact on me, and I did learn something from each of them. And like I said, some of the reasons why I set up the LRS the way I did was because of flaws I saw, or ways that I saw different communities getting abused by individuals that had some sort of entrenched power or authority or prestige, you know, that from potentially titles or different ways that organizations were structured even. So I wanted to create a space, like I said, for people to get together from all different branches of the esoteric and occult, and that they could cross pollinate their ideas with one another. They could converse. They could explore, and they could find people to collaborate on different projects with. Is one of the things I really like about the idea. And one of the projects that has spawned from the LRS, and I've talked about it already a bit, is the International Left Hand Path Conferences. So the very first International Left Hand Path Conference was something that I produced in Toronto, Ontario, and that was back in 2012. And it was based off of the same concept of the LRS itself, where you have all these different conferences that are like, say, Noticon for the OTO, I think is what they call theirs. You've got one for the Temple of Set, a conference. You've got one for this order or that order, and it's for members of that particular organization to join, to come and talk about their own particular tradition. But I saw a gap there where there wasn't really a conference for people to come together from different traditions that could put people from, let's say, the sect of the Horned God in the same room as the uh, the Church of Satan, or in the same room as the Temple of Phosphorus, or the same room as the Temple of Set, and talk to one another and be face to face with each other, because there's a lot of animosity that I saw between groups, especially because they're all in their own individual pylons, their own individual silos, I should say, where they were all gathered together in an echo chamber of their own tradition, their own silo of this tradition or that tradition. And I said, okay, you know what? Let's get them all in the same room together, face to face, and hopefully no fights break out, And none did, although it did get heated at times. Um, but people ended up finding a greater respect for one another, and something magical happened when you get people of different traditions in the same room as one another, especially with the left hand path. Getting people from various different left hand path traditions in the same room together, and just something magical absolutely happens. And that first left hand path conference, that first International Left Hand Path Conference, we had people from multiple countries participating in it and giving talks, and attending, and that was just so inspiring. That's what the LRS is supposed to be in an online space, and these international left-hand path conferences are an extension of the LRS into the real world. And that first international left-hand path conference in Toronto was launched from the LRS, and now you have other ones that people have, especially people that I did work with as co-hosts, people that I said, okay, I want to do a conference. I want to produce a conference in the city that you're in. Would you like to help me with it? Would you like to participate as a co-host with me on this? And then we worked together, and we produced an event in another city. And then some of those people have gone on to produce their own independent left-hand path conferences, and that all stems right from the Luciferian Research Society was the root of all of that. And the way that the left hand, or the LRS, was structured, that's how these left hand path conferences are also structured. And that's what the LRS is supposed to be, is this space where people can get together from various different paths and learn from each other and develop a new respect for other traditions, and maybe learn something about that they didn't realize about something, because they're not in an echo chamber where they're just learning about their own tradition and maybe even blasting other traditions or making fun of other traditions. They learn a new respect for each other, and something magical happens when you get people from different traditions together. And that's what the LRS is supposed to be, in an online space. And these conferences, like I call them Flambeau Noir when I produce them myself. The Flambeau Noir conferences are, and the other ones that were inspired by these, um, they're all based off of the root of the Luciferian Research Society, and that's what that's supposed to be. And especially nowadays, where with all this pandemic stuff, where we can't get together in real meat space, as some people say, in the real world, IRL, you know, it becomes even more important to have a space like this, like the LRS, to get together and share knowledge, to collaborate on projects with each other across traditional uh, boundaries or paths, or whatever you want to call it. Something really magical happens when you get people together like that, and I think that especially now, the LRS is even more important probably than it ever has been for this to exist. And I hope that you understand that, and I hope that you decide to support it by joining it. Now, be in this new with the new relaunch of the new interface, the upgraded interface. Um, there's a promotion where the first month, if you're a brand new member, if you register as a new member, you'll get your first month for free. And after that, it's only $1 a month to maintain your membership. And that's $1 a month. Or if you want to pay for a full year up front, that's 12 months for $10. And you save a couple bucks. Even that, it's a very, very modest membership fee, and that helps pay for the platform itself to maintain the expenses incurred that basically I have to pay to keep this going. And so right now, anybody who was already a registered member, you can join. You can come back and you can join it, and you'll have your free month starting today, and that's been added to your account, a free month. If you've already paid for a year or whatever, you just get an extra month added as well. So let's say you had 7 months of membership left on that you've paid up. Well, now you have 8. You know, and this, I wanted people to get a chance to check out the new interface, to check out all the recent activity. There's a lot more people joining and participating on the LRS, and I wanted people to get a chance to come check it out without having to pay $1 to do that. And hopefully a lot of the people will see the value in it and want to continue to support the site and continue to access the members only aspects of the site, and will decide that the $1 a month is worth it, or less if you pay for a full year up front. So that's my pitch basically. I really hope that you guys see the value in the LRS, especially nowadays when we can't get in real life meetings as much as we could in other times when we didn't have this pandemic. And I hope you decide to stick around after your free month and continue to be an active member of this community that has spawned these projects, such as the Flambeau Noir, and inspired the other International Left Hand Path conferences that are independent, that I don't even have anything to do with anymore, but basically are with people that have worked with me in the past on conferences and then decided to do their own independent conferences based on the same model. Um, so that's what the LRS has done in the world, and it's brought the left hand path to a different level. Really, I mean, if you really look at what's happened in the left hand path, part of what's happened is because of these conferences, and these conferences are because of the Luciferian Research Society. And so I hope you see the value, and I hope you decide to participate, and I hope you decide to stick around and continue to support the site and be an active member. And I love to see you there. And I think that that's probably the best thing to drop off here. I see Louis Alberto says, I'm learning through you. You speak clear Luciferianism. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Louis. But yeah, so if you stuck through to this point, hopefully you see what can be done and what has been done, and I hope to see you on the Luciferian Research Society. Go to www.luciferianresearch.org and sign up. Like I said, if you do that before July 20th, that's the new moon of July, before the end of the current lunar cycle, before the next new moon, 2020, then you'll get a free month of your first month will be free. If you're already a registered member, then you've already got your free month, and you can just come back in and use your existing login and password credentials to join. All of the old content is still there, and we've just got a much upgraded system that we're interacting with. New features as well have been added. A live chat where, kind of like the live chat on this live stream, but it's on the site, and you can talk directly with people in the group. You can talk directly one-on-one with an individual through private instant messages. You have your own profile page. You can post your own blog. Like I said, check it out. Explore all the different features, and hopefully you'll like it enough to stick around. And at that, I think I'll sign off here. Until next time, everybody, stay lucid.